Okay, and I think we are live now. So, hello everyone, and welcome to this next installment of the Euroculture public Q&A, in which we, of course, explain a little bit about the Euroculture program, but also, more importantly, perhaps give you the opportunity to ask your questions about your application and about the ongoings of the application process. I am joined today by Anfield, who is actually a current Euroculture student and also, if I am not mistaken, a holder of the Erasmus Mundus scholarship. And of course, so today she will also be here to answer your questions related to that as well. Maybe Anfield, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thanks, Jammer, for the short introduction. So, yeah, hi, I'm Anfield. I'm currently in my second year of Euroculture Master. And yeah, I'm doing my internship with the Unique Network in the Netherlands. And yeah, like Jammer said, I also received a Erasmus Mundus scholarship. So I would be happy to answer if you have any questions about my experience in preparing for the applications or about the program in general.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Just before we continue, so everyone, if there are issues with the audio or if there's something that doesn't sound right or look right, just let me know. I think we should be good, but we're Master of Arts people. We don't do tech very well, so I hope everything works. Okay, but of course, for this first part of the presentation, as with last time, I would like to start with there is an echo in the audio. Okay, let me see if we can fix that. There is an echo in the audio. Okay, let me see if we can fix that. In my preview, it sounds okay. Is it a big echo? Is it like a feedback loop or just a little bit of echo? Is it a big echo? Is it like a feedback loop or just a little bit of echo? Is it a big echo? Is it like a okay, it's important that we figure this out because with bad audio, this is completely unwatchable. So we should be making sure that it works. Oh, okay. So it's only when Anfield talks. Okay, could you talk again a little bit, Anfield, to see? I'm just checking. Maybe there's a feedback between my audio and the screen. Okay, could you talk again a little bit, Anfield?
Okay, is the echo still there? I have my headphone on, so is it
Is it
better
better
now
now
or
or
not
not
really?
really?
I think I might see the problem. Wait, I have an idea. I think I need to mute you in the. No, that doesn't work because I need the audio to come through here. No, and you need to be able to hear me, so we can't turn this off. I can't turn off the camera, that doesn't help. Maybe turning off the camera helps. I'll try this. Okay. Well, okay. For now, I think we'll just have to continue, and then for the second part in the Q&A, we'll figure it out from there. Okay. So because in the first part, I think I'll be doing most of the talking anyway, so we can figure it out for the second part. Okay. So let's see. Okay, let's do it like this. Can we do it like this? Does this mess things up? It does a little bit, huh? Okay. Yes, okay, so this is good. So, Euroculture. What is the Euroculture program? Euroculture is an interdisciplinary European studies program. It's also characterized by the fact that it's a small scale program with maybe about 100 people in the program every year. We're dealing with a 2-year master program here, so it's 120 ECTS, constructed out of 4 semesters, each worth 30 credits. So ECTS, of course, stands for the European Credit Transfer System, which is the European equivalent of credits as you would see them in other parts of the world. It should be noted that Euroculture is taught in many different countries, but it's always entirely English taught wherever you go. So the only language that you need to know to study Euroculture at an academic level is English. As I alluded to just now, Euroculture is organized as part of a European consortium or network, and this network consists of 8 European universities and 4 non-European universities. Our 8 European universities each offer the program in parallel, meaning that you can choose to start at any one of them, and then throughout your studies you'll be asked to move to different places with the goal of giving you a European, let's say, experience of European studies. More importantly, perhaps for you as well, Euroculture is an Erasmus Mundus program, which means that that we have the Erasmus Mundus scholarship available, and that we are organized within the context of the Erasmus Mundus project. So we also offer joint master degrees. Maybe it's good to specify that a joint master degree is not the same as a double degree. A joint degree is one diploma offered by 2 universities, whereas a double degree is 2 diplomas offered by 2 universities. So there is one certificate at the end of Euroculture that is offered in cooperation between at least 2 of our European partner universities. Why study Euroculture? What makes this program, let's say, different or special? It's maybe good to know that Euroculture is quite well established in the context of Erasmus Mundus. We've survived, let's say, for a total of 25 years now, so we're celebrating our 25th birthday this year. And we've received the Master of Excellence label, which is another way of saying that we are an Erasmus Mundus program, 4 times already. So we've reapplied for Erasmus Mundus funding 4 times and have gotten it 4 times as well, which is within the context of that project rather exceptional. It's not so common for programs to repeatedly get that funding that many times. Additionally, within the Erasmus Mundus framework, Euroculture is also considered to be a flagship program. We are generally seen to be quite a successful Erasmus Mundus programs, and other programs are always interested in learning from us about how we organize things. Also, because as you'll find, Euroculture's mobility structure and the size of the consortium is quite big, so that also makes the organization more complex. But it also comes with challenges and things that other Erasmus Mundus programs are always happy to learn from. So that's what we mean when we say flagship program. And it's also good to mention that Euroculture is quite highly evaluated throughout by the, let's say, European Commission and its agencies with regards to education, receiving a solid 9 out of 10 on its evaluation last time. In the Netherlands, this is specific to the Netherlands, but Euroculture has a good reputation in many countries. It's recognized as a top master, which means that we generally get quite good evaluations both from students and from the professional institutions dealing with evaluation of master programs, so accreditation agencies, you might say. For example, just last year in the Netherlands, Euroculture was chosen to be the best European studies program in the country based on the perceptions of students in particular. So that also goes back to positive alumni evaluations. So Euroculture's alumni tend to be quite happy with what they learned during their studies. They see the program as a relevant added value to their careers after their graduation. And we see that reflected in the evaluations we get back. In addition to that, Euroculture, because it's well established and because it's been around for quite a while, it has a strong reputation with employers, especially in the Brussels area, but also beyond. We'll get into that, what that means a little bit more. But studying Euroculture can indeed be an asset for pursuing particular career paths. Okay, good. I think we're all there. So what are relevant backgrounds to Euroculture? There's many, as you can see. I don't want to give you the full list, but these are the most common ones. So if you don't see your exact bachelor program mentioned here, that doesn't mean that you are not eligible, but rather that you might fall outside the most common disciplines. What you should keep in mind as a principle for considering whether you're eligible for Euroculture is whether you have a background in the arts, humanities, or social sciences. So that's really the type of student that we're looking for, and that can be quite broad. So that can include anything from literary studies to history to philosophy to international relations or international or European law. So that's the range of programs is quite broad. If you're not sure if you're eligible, please just ask us at euroculture@rug.nl. We can ask our admissions board to take a look at your background based on your transcript, maybe your CV, and we can see if there's a sufficient basis to continue your Euroculture application. Okay. Euroculture's curriculum, as you'll see throughout the presentation, is very interdisciplinary. What that means is that Euroculture sits at the intersection of multiple academic disciplines. These are some of the main ones, the 4 domains you could think of when thinking of Euroculture. That doesn't mean that this is everything that's covered, but rather this is an indication, once again, of very common themes in the program. So Euroculture sits at the intersection of history, arts and culture, languages, and international politics. And the way you could say that these disciplines come together is in asking the central questions related to the program. So what is European integration? What is European culture? What is European identity? How can we examine these processes critically? How can we reflect on ongoing recent developments in the field of Europe, in the field of European studies? And that's really the intersection of where these disciplines, where it starts to become interesting. Because, of course, European integration is not only a matter of politics, it is not only a matter of history, it is not only a matter of arts and cultures, it's not only a matter of language, but rather a combination of all of these things. And that's why European studies in particular is so well suited to an interdisciplinary approach that deals with these various domains. So the goal of Euroculture is really to critically examine the processes of European integration, to critically think about European questions, about the place of Europe, also in a global context. So what is the place of Europe? And is there such a thing as a European culture, a European identity? And what does it mean for there to be something like that, if there is something like that? So these are some of the questions you might be thinking about when thinking about what you would be studying in Euroculture. And you can take your background, whether that is in one of these fields or something that's even slightly different, you can take that background and contribute to the discussion. That's really the goal. Yes, so for the European network, I will just show you this map that we have. Let's see if that's clearly visible for you. Yes, I think so. So Euroculture is present at multiple universities in Europe and also 4 universities outside of Europe. What you'll see is that these universities are spread throughout the north, the south, in different places. And as I mentioned, you can choose to study at multiple of these universities. You, during your application process, will be asked to submit a total of 3 preferences, but and based on that, we will assign you to a number of our universities. So the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, of course, this is where I'm calling to you from today. We are also where the central chair of the Euroculture network is based, so that's why I'm here and not a representative from Göttingen or Krakow. It's because the Euroculture network is organized and maintained from the Netherlands. But of course, it can also be taught at different places. So, for example, the University of Strasbourg in France, the University of Deusto in Spain, the University of Göttingen in Germany, Uppsala in Sweden, Krakow in Poland, Olomouc in the Czech Republic, of course, and Udine in Italy. Each of these universities has what you might say a group. It's a coordinator like me. They have a director of studies in charge of the academic content, and they of course have a number of lecturers associated with the Euroculture program that will be teaching you the courses of the program. So that's kind of the general structure. Every university has these people and teach the program in their particular academic cultural style. Yes. But what does it mean for them to teach the program in their style, and what does it mean? So generally speaking, the structure of the program is that you have 4 semesters, each being worth 30 credits for a total of 120 ECTS. And you might see the 4 semesters labeled as follows. So the first semester might be what you could say orientation. So during the first semester, as I will explain in a little bit, there's a number of crash courses in a number of relevant academic disciplines. Perhaps crash course is not the best way to say it. Let's say high intensity is perhaps a better way of saying it, because you are all going to be coming in from a number of different academic disciplines, and you might be used to doing academia in a certain way. Well, the first semester is also about exposing you to other approaches to the questions of Euroculture. So if you're a historian, you might not know so much about languages. If you are coming from an international relations background, you might not know so much about cultural studies. So the goal of the first semester is to give you a number of courses in each of these disciplines to give you at least a basic frame of reference that allows you to approach topics from an interdisciplinary perspective. The second semester is the specialization semester, you might say. In this semester, you'll be asked to move to a different Euroculture partner university, and at that university, you'll follow a number of modules related to theory and methodology, related to project management, but also a number of specialized research seminars that are specific to the university that you choose. We'll get into what that means a little bit down the line as well. In semester 3, we call it the professionalization semester. And why? Because this is kind of where you make a track choice, and in that track choice, you kind of hint at what you also might want to be doing after your studies, although that's not necessarily true. So in the third semester, you can choose to pursue either a professional track or what we might call the placement track. So basically doing an internship with an organization relevant to the topics of European studies. So that can be anything from the European Commission to cultural institutions in a country. As long as there is a clear link to the themes and topics of Euroculture, you can choose many placement organizations. And maybe in a little bit, in the second part, maybe Anfield, you can also tell a little bit about your internship as well, because this is also the track that you chose. So the other choice in your third semester is the research track. So that's pursuing research with one of our European partner universities. With our European partner universities, you will be able to work on a current project with a researcher that is working on that project, with the goal of, hopefully also producing some research output that will boost your career in the field of academia. Or finally, you can choose to pursue a non-European research track option. I should say, and this is important to specify, that this track is only available for European nationals or students with significant work and living experience in the EU already. So for some of you, this track might not be an option, but for some of you it might be, so I do want to mention it. The non-European research track is a 25 ECTS let's say, exchange experience to one of our 4 non-European partner universities. You'll be asked to study there, and basically a program will be prepared for you by that university of your choice. So maybe just to specify which universities those are, that's Pune, that's Mexico City, that's Queens, Canada, and that's also Osaka in Japan. These 4 partner universities of ours will offer a sort of integrated, completely preset, with some flexibility built in, but a preset program with a number of choices for you in terms of which courses you might want to choose. They'll prepare a list, let's say, of things that you might want to do. and other courses are mandatory. But in any way, the goal is to create an experience for you for the duration of one semester of kind of what it's like to study in that field, and also, of course, to pursue research in a particular topic. So it's kind of an immersive semester at one of these places, and it's quite nice because they usually also include extra excursions, extracurricular activities. So that's quite a nice experience overall. Good. And of course, in the fourth semester, we call it finalization because that's when you do two things. You write your master thesis, but you also start preparing for what comes after Euroculture. So in that case, it's kind of similar to the third semester. We have a module called Eurocompetence 3, where you have to prepare either a PhD application, mock application, although you can, of course, choose to actually use it, or you can choose to write a mock project application. So, for example, a grant application for funding for a project that is of interest to you, in the interest of preparing you for the skills that you might need once you graduate after your studies. So that's the goal of the first semester, is to finish up your program, but also help you prepare for what comes afterwards. So that's the general structure. That was a lot of information. We'll go through it in a little bit more detail down the line as well. But before that, I just want to reflect briefly on the mobility structure. So the mobility and the curriculum in Euroculture are very much intertwined with each other. So based on the choices that you make in your mobility, you also make choices with regards to the curriculum that's interesting to you. Each university has their own thematic focus, and that thematic focus determines whether particular topics are discussed or focused on more than others. However, I should also be clear that the same curriculum in a general sense is offered at all of the universities. So don't worry too much if, for example, a particular university is interesting to you, but the thematic focus is maybe less relevant to your research interests. There's only a limited number of credits for specialization, so it's not the end of the world if, for example, a particular thematic focus is not directly relevant to your previous background. But the structure for the mobility is as follows. It's a little complicated, but this is the easiest way I found of putting it into writing. So for your first semester, you choose any one of our 8 European partner universities. For your second semester, you have to choose any of the other 7 that still remain. So in that case, it can be any university that you haven't been to. And I should specify that this mobility movement from semester 1 to semester 2 is mandatory. So there's no way around that particular semester. But as you might have already seen for semester 3 and 4, that's the only mandatory mobility semester. So you can choose to go to even another place in your third semester, but you may also choose to come back to a place you've already been before. So another way of saying that is that you need to do a minimum of 1 mobility semester, and you can do a maximum of 3. And why a maximum of 3 and not 4? And that's because in the fourth semester, you have to come back to either your first or second semester university. And this has to do with the fact that you're going to be receiving thesis supervision, and that thesis supervision needs to be provided by a university that is going to offer you a diploma, and that is going to be universities A and or B. And that's a joint diploma. So it needs to be one of the universities that you're going to get a diploma from. So that needs to be a place you've already been to before. This is always a little complicated, so if you don't get it, feel free to ask questions about that. Okay. I see a question from Anastasia. Please talk about the program's objective, especially about language studies. I'll try. I should say objectives are hard to define for a program in which we, let's say, discuss. We have a very interdisciplinary group of students. So what is our objective in that regard is that can very much depend. So your objectives as a student might be different from the skills that the program tried to teach you in some way. I should be clear about this. I'll get back to your question later, okay? For the moment, I'll just go through this presentation. But I'll keep your question in mind, and if I forget, just remind me and we'll go over that in more detail. The Euroculture classroom is small scale, international. What we mean by that, so small scale and international, generally our groups are not bigger than between, let's say, anywhere from 5 to 25 people in a classroom. So that's about the size that you can expect. They are highly international in the sense that Euroculture attracts applications from all over the world. So that's also reflected in the diversity in the classroom. Additionally, Euroculture focuses on project-based and active learning. So there's a lot of assignments that involve group work. There's a lot of writing and for example, paper writing, but also projects that you have to implement as part of, for example, your competence 2. So there are a number of modules in the program that really focus on these project-based active learning strategies. So there's a lot of engagement, a lot of talking, a lot of working together, and that's also coming back to the international classroom. Quite important because we believe if you want to take our sort of theoretical approach to this, also relating back to objectives in a way, Euroculture sees the international classroom as a kind of laboratory for cultural exchange. So that's a rather theoretical way of saying that we value the fact that students from different cultures work together in an academic context and have to cross cultural and disciplinary gaps to advance their knowledge. So that's the academic way of saying it, let's say. So that's kind of what we see as valuable in the Euroculture classroom. That's also why we value physical classrooms, why not many of our parts of our curriculum are online, because we feel that the cultural exchange happens not only inside the classroom, but also outside the classroom. So it's also about the experience of mobility, the experience of being and dealing with different cultures. So in a broader sense, we see that as part of the learning outcomes as well, is being able to tackle culturally sensitive topics and communicating clearly about those topics with a group of diverse people. Okay. Yes, I think I'll just briefly reflect on the semester. So I hope when we're talking about objectives, this helps you a little bit as well. Semester 1, so that's the semester called orientation. Again, this is not an official title. This is just a label that we give to it to maybe make it a little bit more clear what we mean by the semester structure. But generally, this is what you see on the screen right now is what is on offer during the first semester. Regardless of where you go, so that can be any one of our 8 European partner universities, as you see on the right-hand side as well. They offer this general structure. So your competence 1 focuses on transferable and foundational skills. What does that mean? Transferable and foundational skills are skills like academic citation, presentation. In Groningen, we also do a debate course. These are the kinds of skills that can be useful and transferable outside the academic context as well, into everyday life, into your professional career. So that's kind of what your competence 1 is for. And you might think, well, academic citation, I've already done that in my bachelor's. I already know what I'm doing. Yes. However, there's 2 things. So first of all, Euroculture maybe uses a different style from what you're used to. So for example, Euroculture often uses Chicago style for citation. If you come from a languages background, you might be used to MLA. You might be used to APA or other citation styles. So it's also about teaching you new methodologies. And on the other hand, there are some of you that during your bachelor's don't do as much academic writing yet. Usually in some academic cultures that's seen as a master level skill, so they don't focus on that as much during the bachelor's. So for some of you it will be deepening skills you already have, but for others it's also about building new skills that you might not have acquired before. So your competence is for some people kind of a way to get up to that level, and for others it might be a way to expand the skills that they already have. In addition to that sort of transferable skills course, there's also a number of modules on, broadly speaking, the topics of European culture, European politics, and European history. I should add, for example, that European politics, in some academic disciplines, in some academic cultures, politics and law are more tightly interwoven. So, for example, in the Netherlands, we separate that into a module for politics and a module for law, whereas in other academic contexts, what you might see is that these are combined. So politics and legal studies are kind of combined in the context of just framing, but that's something that is oftentimes discussed as well. So the first semester is a kind of critical reflection on the concept of European culture. Is there such a thing as European culture? What does it mean for there to be a European culture? How are the cultures of Europe constructed, for example, through institutions or through grassroots movements, through cultural, let's say, other instances of cultural events appearing? How are these things informed by even history, for example? So I should note that these are always, and that's a baseline thing that sometimes I think we could stress more, is Euroculture takes a critical approach to all of these topics. This is not about giving you a preset narrative about what Europe is supposed to be. Rather, it's about giving you the tools to critically think about what it might be for you, what you think is important. So it's about critically reflecting on these processes and these things that we see, and not so much about giving you a set of facts that must constitute some kind of truth. That's not what this is about. Secondly, we have a course on European politics. This generally focuses on the history of European integration from the post-World War II era up until today. So more basic questions like, how does the European Commission work? What is the European Parliament? How do these institutions relate to national politics? These are the kinds of questions you might want to think about when you're thinking about the course on European politics. And finally, there's a course on European history, which is, let's say, a more broad, sweeping history of what Europe has been over the years, how it's been perceived, what role it played in global events. Again, from a critical perspective, the goal is not to tell you how it was, but rather to teach you how to think critically about the processes that inform European history. So that's really the goal of semester 1. In semester 2, you move to a different place. Again, you can see on the right-hand side of the slide which options there are. And this is the general structure at all of the universities that you'll be going to. So there is a course on project management and intercultural communication. There's a course on theory and methodology. So this comes back to what I was talking about in the first semester. You might have particular skills from your bachelor's. Theory and methodology is an opportunity for you to add something to that from another discipline, or to expand the skill in a particular direction. It's meant to expose you to different research methodologies with the eventual goal of giving you a new tool to add to your tool belt, you might say. A different way of maybe combining methods. So maybe if you are very used to qualitative research, let's say from a languages perspective, you might want to include some statistics or statistical models in your research. That's something that theory and methodology might be able to offer you. In addition to that, so this is back to the specialization I was talking about earlier. You have a series of specialized research seminars that are thematic focus dependent. So these research seminars are different at all of the different universities. I will not be giving examples from across the board, but what I will show you here is this slide with a number of examples from different universities. So you might guess that Germany in the European multi-level system will be taught in Germany, but there are some, what you can generally see is that our different universities offer courses in disciplines that are relevant to the, for example, faculty that, or the department that the Euroculture program is taught from. So for some of them that is taking a more historical approach, for some of them it's a more societal approach. For others, it's more cultural or even an international governance or international politics related approach. So that variety is just kind of built in into the process. I will just leave this slide open for 1 or 2 more seconds if you're interested in some of these courses. Okay, good. So those specialized seminars usually take up about 1/3 of your semester. So out of the 30 credits, that would be approximately 10. So that means that the theory methodology, the Eurocompetence, and the annual intensive program take up about 2/3. This can depend slightly on the universities that you attend. Okay, but of course, as a final one for the second semester, and this is always very exciting, it's the annual intensive program. So at the end of the first year, I will have actually, yeah, I do have slides for that. We do a summer school because as you gather from maybe the mobility structure so far, we have students in multiple different universities at a time, and many of them won't really have the chance to meet because they don't go to the same places. The IP, or the intensive program, is the place at the end of the year where all the students from all the different cohorts, from all the different universities, come together as a cohort to discuss a contemporary topic related to Europe. So what you could call that a student conference on current academic developments. So we attract people from all different universities. We attract guest speakers as well. We attract alumni to the event to come talk about their academic developments, about their career developments. And we have a week-long program in which we do the student conference. You prepare the intensive program paper. You present that during the IP. In addition, there is a career day where you get the chance to meet with alumni and talk with them about their academic and professional experiences after the program. We do excursions. You have to do a project as part of that as well. So I would say it's a really exciting opportunity to be in one place with a bunch of like-minded people that have a similar approach to European studies, a similar approach to thinking about academic issues, which makes it a very exciting and dynamic event always. I should also note there's some fun things at the end, like a gala dinner as well. Everyone dresses up. You come together in a nice restaurant, and we celebrate another successful installment of the intensive program. It's a really wonderful experience. And definitely the IP, you could say, is really one of the highlights at the end of your first year. Yes, so that's all more or less part of the second semester. So although timeline-wise the IP will take place after your second semester is mostly finished, the credits associated with the IP are part of your second semester. So that's just a way to think about that. Okay, so that's your first year. Then you finish with the IP, and then hopefully you're happy you passed everything and you can move on. The third semester, I think I've already explained most of this, so I won't linger on it too long. But either you do the research track within Europe to gain some research experience, you do the research track outside of Europe to experience a different academic culture, to take courses on particular topics that are relevant to those universities, or you pursue a vocational or professional track to gain experience in the field. Regardless of which of these track choices you make, you also have to write a thesis portfolio, and a thesis portfolio is in preparation for your thesis in the fourth semester, where you will have to write the master thesis. Okay. Anfield, maybe this is a nice moment for you to talk about your placement and your experience about that. Maybe we can do it that way. So, can I give you the floor?
Yeah, sure. If there's still an echo going on, maybe you could mute your mic.
Yes, I'll try to see. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Maybe I can start, and if there's still an echo going on, just let us know in the chat. So yeah, I'm currently doing my internship in my third semester. So yeah, I'm doing my internship at the Unique Network Netherlands. So it is a network of cultural institutes of the EU in the Netherlands, and then they comes together to host an event or come up with a strategy to promote European perspective of culture together. And the way I find my internship is that I start looking around the end of my second semester, and then I got an email from the program itself. So when there are interesting internship opportunity, you would also get an email. So that's how I learned about these internships, and then I applied, and I got the internship after rounds of interviews. And so far I was really happy with the internship. So as you already heard that there's a the program is already been going on for a very long time, so there's a huge network of alumni. And during my internship, it's the part where I actually see that the network itself is very clear, because at my workplace there were like three other alumni there, and then my supervisor he's also from Euroculture. So it was like quite easy to get to talk to them and then to build further network, because like Euroculture is in itself quite an unique program, and so we have a lot to talk together. Yeah. So a bit more on my internship. So my it's a little bit hard to pinpoint what actually is like my job description, because for Unique, the network is that they don't really have an office or any members in the Unique itself. So everyone who work for the Unique are actually working for their own cultural institutes, like from Goethe, from Alliance Française. So I would be like the only more or less permanent staff in Unique. And my tasks are mainly two. First one is to the administrative, hosting meeting, sending out invites, and writing minutes from all the cluster meeting that we host every month. And the other part, which is a little bit more fun in my thought, is that I also help in hosting events from the Unique. So that part is more on the pro project management side and also communication side. So I also work with promoting events on social media, and also to help organize contacting speakers, and making sure the logistic of the event goes smoothly, which is really great, because like from the second semester we have this project management courses, and I did actually use like a lot of experience or skills that I learned from that course into my own internship. And even before that, actually, like during the interview, we also get to ask I was asked like, were there other have you worked in a project and did you run into a problem, and how do you solve that? So one of the example that I gave during the interview was also from this project management Euroculture Euro competence 2 course. So that's really good. And also currently I will be finishing my internship already this month, but it's not that I also get to use my skills from last semester, that I learned more practical skills that I think I could like use and help me to find a job later on, such as like those social media management skills, those project management skills. But academically, it also gave me an idea to do my thesis later on, and I will be focusing on doing, um, yeah, analyzing the European values that are presented in the work of Unique Netherlands and also the Unique Global. So in a way, this internship has been such a great opportunity for me. And are there any questions specifically about my internship? Or if not, then maybe I can give the floor back to Yelmer.
All right, I don't see any questions right now. Thanks a lot, Anfield. Of course, maybe people can also save up their questions for the second half, and then we can just talk. Once the presentation is over, we can just do a more free sort of Q&A, and then. So Saleh Ayub, I see that you have a question. Keep it. You can write it out in the chat. We'll just go back through the chat to see, and then we'll go over your question later, if that's okay. So, because the sooner I get through this presentation, the sooner we get to all your questions anyway. Okay. So I think that was already a great insight into the third semester internship option. maybe just some other placement examples that we have here. I think yours is in here as well, Anfield. So these are actually, if you look at the screen now, these are actually the internships that our students are currently pursuing. So this is not just random examples or from like 5 years ago. This is actually what people are doing right now. And as you can see, there's a lot of diversity in the kinds of organizations people are working for. Also with quite prestigious institutions a lot of the time as well. So our students tend to pursue placements that are, I would say, very interesting. Okay. I think that's long enough. People can see it. Okay, then. Oh yeah, and just by the way, for people joining in, you can always this will be recorded, of course, and placed on our YouTube channel later. So if there's a particular part that you want to get back to later, this will be posted as a VOD or video on demand. So you can always come back to it later if there's a particular part or question that you didn't get the answer to, etc. Semester 4 is more easy to explain compared to the third semester. You write your thesis, you receive joint supervision for that. So what we mean by that is that you have a supervisor from your first university and from your second university, and they will, together with you, work on the project and supervise the thesis. Joint supervision because you get a joint diploma. So that's one of the benefits of Euroculture, is that you get more intensive support compared to other programs. Additionally, there's another one of the Euro competence modules. I always, it's a cheesy name, but they get the job done. Euro competence 3, which is, again, where you can kind of see the difference between the academic focus and the professional or vocational focus that we have within the program. You can choose to pursue either a project application writing variant of the course, or you can choose to pursue a PhD application writing variant of the course. And depending on what you choose, you produce a different piece of output, and you choose on the basis of what you think is most useful to your career after your studies. In addition to that, we have a supporting thesis seminar, which is just an opportunity for you to present your ongoing thesis work to your fellow students and your lecturer as well, to get some extra feedback throughout the process. So that's just kind of a thing that we throw in as well. So that's really the 4 semesters broken down into what each semester does. Maybe it's good to have, so these are actually theses of our most recent graduates. Yes, these are our most recent graduates. I was thinking if there's another year. No. This is still the most recent group. In terms of objectives, again, we don't really think about objectives. We rather think of outcomes. So what are the skills that we want to teach? What is the knowledge that you should have at the end of the program? These are kind of the ways we think about that, and not really in terms of, well, there's objectives that fall under that, but that's really the way we think about it. We see that our students tend to come back to these 4 categories of topics. So European integration and identity. Students come back to topics related to culture, heritage, and memory. They come back to migration, minorities, and citizenship as a topic. And they come back to the European Union in a global context, because Euroculture also has it's also quite possible to follow seminars related to feminism, post-colonial discourses, to migration studies, and what we see is those kinds of topics have become more common within the program over time. So that's, and an additional topic that we see coming back more and more now that isn't yet a category are links to sustainability and sustainable society, sustainable culture. Rather, of course, because sustainability is not just a technological problem, it's also a cultural and political problem. So these dimensions of sustainable society are also increasingly becoming issues that Euroculture students want to talk about, want to think about, and also write about in their theses. So that's just some anecdotes. What does Euroculture prepare you for? You could roughly say these sectors. Euroculture students tend to end up in project management, management and coordination. They tend to work in PR and marketing, in communication. They do administrative work in a more general sense, although I don't particularly like that category because administrative work is the part of every job. There is no job without administration, I'm sorry to tell you. So that's always going to be something that comes back, but of course there's also research. There's this can be as in academia, but also in think tanks. So there's different ways of doing research as well. Of course, advising and consultancy, policy making, and so being in policy teams, that's quite common as well. Also within the European institutions, we see that our students end up in European institutions as part of policy making teams in various domains. Lobbying, I should specify that a little bit. Lobbying in the context of the EU is not as much of a dirty word as it would be in other contexts. Of course, in Brussels in particular, there are a lot of civil society organizations and NGOs that are lobbying to the EU to advance particular societal goals. So these are, in by definition, also interest groups that are interested in advancing particular goals, like a lobbyist would. But many in Brussels at least, there is a larger tradition of lobby groups that are, let's say less neoliberally minded and more so focused on using the EU as a mechanism to advance societal progress in various societal, cultural domains. So, for example, advancing the cultural sector, advancing, trying to make the sustainability goals of the EU more strict. These kinds of organizations also are constituted as lobbying organizations when I'm talking about that in this context. So, just so you know, lobbying, it actually falls much more in line also with things like advising and consultancy. And of course, reporting, editing, and translation. And why these sectors? Generally speaking, Euroculture students, after their program, they tend to find that they can write well, they can think critically, they can present their work well, and they can deal with a large variety of different groups of people. So these are all very beneficial, transferable skills. And you might think, well, don't you kind of learn this everywhere? You would be surprised. So these skills are actually valuable. And the fact that Euroculture has these sort of, if you go back to the small scale international classrooms, learning how to deal with cultural sensitivities is also a matter of being exposed to different cultures within the classroom and outside the classroom. And let's say a program like Euroculture just gives you a very good mechanism through which to develop these skills. But of course, you have to write a lot as part of your assignments. You have to do a lot of group work. So you know how to work in groups. You know how to work in teams. You know how to write well and efficiently. So that really does prepare you in a general sense for a lot of different sectors. But there's some additional benefits also to the reputation of the program. So what I already mentioned was the fact that the soft skills, so writing, academically, speaking, presenting, these things are valued by the program, but an additional thing for also project management. The fact that we have a course specifically on project management in the masters is in many European countries quite exceptional. To have this sort of, let's say, applied or to have the sort of practical skills included in the curriculum. That's not something that many countries associate with university, but it is very important for university trained people as well. So that's something that we get a lot of messages from employers about, where they say, wow, okay, so you actually teach your students to do projects. What is it like? How does it work? So we see that employers value that particular skill and that particular set of skills as well. Additionally, the program, it goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning. Euroculture has a well-established reputation in Brussels. We have over 1,600 alumni at this point from over 70 different countries, so a lot of different people have studied Euroculture. And of course, you're dealing with people who've had careers for maybe 20 years at this point. So it also means that Euroculture graduates can be found at many different levels in many different kinds of organizations, and they therefore, so therefore the program has a reputation for producing these people. And there's also the added value that sometimes it happens to be that your supervisor that is going to do your interview is somehow a Euroculture alumnus. It can happen. So that can be an advantage, and it has been an advantage in the past. Practically speaking. But maybe to express it more statistically, 90% of our graduates find a relevant position within 6 months, and 70%, so 70%, find a relevant position within 3 months. So in terms of employability, regardless of what sector that might be, Euroculture does very well, especially for an arts program. As arts programs, of course, have the reputation of being less good about their, employability. That's not as big as a concern with Euroculture. So we do quite well compared to many other arts programs. One other way in which that works is because we have an active alumni community. We are on social media. People stay in touch well after their programs are finished. And that has the added benefit of people sharing vacancies with each other, people getting forwarded placements, all kinds of, let's say, professional opportunities. So there is a kind of sense of network and community that sticks after the program is finished, which is also because people are motivated to stay in touch because there's opportunities for them in staying in touch. And it's also nice because you have friends all over the place at that point. So it's both from a personal and professional perspective quite satisfying to know that there's people out there that understand what you did all over the place, and they share things with each other. So that's very nice. I see it's already 12. I will try to wrap this up quickly. Okay, I think most of you, if you're already in the process of doing your application, you're probably not super worried about understanding what the scholarship is, but I will give you the basics again, just to be sure. If you get the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, these are the basic conditions that apply to everyone. Do note that there are some differences depending on your nationality, depending on your geographical location before you started Euroculture, that can affect the total scholarship amount, but these are the things that are always included for everyone. All students receive 24 installments of 1,000 euros for monthly subsistence in the EU. All tuition fees for the program are covered, so you don't have to pay any fees if you're getting the scholarship. Depending on where you're from, it includes compensation for your travel, and depending on where you're from, it includes installation costs. So you will get a lump sum to deal with, for example, visa applications, those kinds of things. Those are set in stone at the beginning. Some important things to mention if you apply for the scholarship. First and second semester destinations are set in advance based on the 3 preferences that you submit in your application. We will always do our best to give you as many of your preferences as you want, but we have to ensure that there is a balance of students across the consortium. So sometimes that means we cannot send all students to their first and second preference. From our perspective, we order the 3 choices. So the thing you submit as preference 1 has the highest priority. The thing that you submit as preference 2 has medium priority, and the preference 3 has the lowest priority of those 3. So keep that in mind. That's also the logic that we apply when we try to assign you semesters. As you might know, as with all Erasmus Mundus programs, we have to ensure geographical diversity in the selection process. The European Commission has quite a large framework of rules related to how we're supposed to allocate scholarships. A majority of the scholarships are always awarded to students with just the highest scores in general, regardless of location, but there are limits to the amount of scholarships that we may give to students from any particular nationality. So it's not possible for us to give 22 people from, let's say, Pakistan a scholarship. We have to ensure diversity in the selection. So if there's too many people from a particular nationality, we have to limit that. In addition, of course, there's also, because of the funding mechanism, geographical windows for people from particular regions. So some people are worried about, let's say, Eurocentrism, or perhaps even racism, or particular biases sneaking into the selection process. What I'm trying to say is that actually the diversity of the program is what we see to be an asset, and additional geographical diversity is very much encoded into the framework of Erasmus Mundus. So if there are biases towards people from particular nationalities, which I personally don't think there are, we have to do a lot of different things to account for them. So that's just something that I want to give you as a takeaway. We try to limit biases to a minimum, and we are very much, also because of the themes of the program, very much aware of discourses surrounding institutional biases. So that's something that we do carefully consider as part of the application process. If you want to apply for the scholarship, you need to hold your degree by January 10. So that means either a statement of graduation confirming that you have already completed all your courses, or the actual diploma. And this, we have to be strict about this. So even, I finished my final course on January 11, that's too late. I'm very sorry. That's the way the system works for us. We really want to be sure that our scholarship holders are already good to go by the time that they start by the time that they submit their application. This is because there's a lot of paperwork associated with the Erasmus Mundus grant process, and we really don't want to run the risk that you will not be able to join in the end. Important to mention, if you are a suitable candidate to study this program, but there is no scholarship available for you, we will always still invite you to the program as a self-financing student. Of course, what that means is some of you will not be able to finance your own studies. That's unfortunate. That's the reality of things. In those cases, there is, unfortunately, aside from the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, not that much we can do. But what I'm trying to say is that we will always look at your application, and there is no harm done in trying for the scholarship, even if you're primarily interested as a self-financing student. Even if you think, oh well, I don't really think I'll get the scholarship, I'm happy to start as a self-financing student. The way we think about it is, you can always try. There's no harm done if you apply for the scholarship. We will just see if it's going to be a match for you, and if not, we will always invite you as a self-financing student. We always try to give you a reflection of the result at the end. The whole application process we can go into the second part. I think lots of you know the basics already. That's probably also how you found this. So I won't go over that too detailed. I will go over more specific questions. Tuition fees, I will just briefly mention. There's a difference between the fee rates for European citizens and non-European citizens. We often get questions about why there's a different fee rate for non-European nationals compared to European nationals. This is a good way to think about it. Higher education in Europe, anyway, is not cost efficient. So what we mean by that is it costs more money to train someone than just the fee rate itself. So what I'm trying to say is European taxpayers pay taxes towards higher education institutions, and then European citizens can benefit from that by having lower tuition fees. So the fee rates that European nationals pay are generally completely not cost efficient whatsoever. Actually, so that's why the non-EU fee rates are higher. Actually, the non-EU fees more closely approximate what higher education would actually cost the university if there is no subsidies from the taxpayer. So it's really a political question. It's not feasible for European institutions, higher education institutions, to have people come in, pay the low rates, and then in most cases, more than 90% of cases, leave the EU again without then having the benefit of them contributing to that economy. So that's the thinking behind why in general, within the entire EU, there's higher fees for non-European citizens. It's because it is not assumed that this category will eventually contribute to the European economy. And also because they do not pay taxes as part of the system. So that's why it works that way. We have to deal with the system as it is. We have our objections, but what can we do? Some of these other things, tuition fees, I will leave here for the moment. So for EU citizenship, the total program is about 6,300 euros. You can add insurance to that. Important note, all scholarship students and all non-European students that apply as self-financing students get an insurance policy mandatorily attached to their scholarship as well. So you get health insurance that will cover you in the EU. In fact, it will cover you in any country that is not your home country in the world. So even if you go to our non-European exchange partners, you would still be covered by this insurance. And it's also important to mention that for non-European students, this insurance is mandatory as well. So it's a legal requirement for us to insure you as part of the program. Yes. So to sort of summarize everything, it was a lot, obviously, so looking forward to getting into your questions. Euroculture is a 25-year-old, well-established European studies program that has survived through its ability to innovate the program, to innovate in the curriculum, to stay, let's say, relevant in its subject matter over the years. So as a result, we have become well-established as a flagship program in the context of the Erasmus Mundus. We are a degree with, as you can tell from the rather complex presentation, that we have a lot of flexibility built into the curriculum. So you have the mobility, you have the track choices, you have all these different options you can choose from to tailor the curriculum to your interests. Of course, we're a joint degree program, so there's added value to having a joint degree. With Euroculture, you also have strong career prospects, much stronger than many of the other arts programs that we see in the EU. Higher employability rates, stronger community after the program. Yes. Additionally, of course, the small-scale international classes are an asset. It gives you the opportunity to actually connect with people, to build, let's say, relationships that go beyond. Let's say you're in a lecture room with 200 people. Great. Who do you get to know? So that sort of level of interaction is a bit, it's a different kind of teaching, more seminar style, seminar-based learning, active learning. And finally, of course, you're dealing with a very interdisciplinary curriculum that combines theory and practice. So you come in with a lot of different, so you're dealing with a lot of different subjects. You're learning a lot about a lot of different things. And it's not just academic theory, but it's also how is this academic theory applicable in the real world, you might say. So that intersection of different academic disciplines, but also the choice and the interaction between theory and practice, we think is very important. With that, I want to say thank you for your time for this part of the presentation. Let's go into the Q&A right away at 12:10. That's just an internal marker, so I can keep ahead of that. I will get rid of my presentation now and make our faces bigger on the screen. That's probably a bit nicer. Okay, so this is how I'll do it. I will make myself the biggest face of them all. And then, let's say, do it like this. Okay, there we go. I think that's quite good. Okay, so there's a lot of questions to catch up on here, from what I can see. Maybe let's get caught up on the questions first, Anfield, and then I'll also give you the floor to talk a little bit about your experiences so far. Okay. So talking about the program's objective, and especially language studies. So one thing that it's still not entirely sure if I've answered any of your questions already about this, but Euroculture is taught in English. We think it's important that students are able to write and speak academic English throughout the program, but it should also be noted that language learning, so learning other languages in the countries that you're going to, is something that we value also during the application process. If you know multiple languages, that's something that we see as valuable, as important. Why? Because it's part of intercultural dialogue, intercultural communication. It shows that you're interested in these things. So language learning is, yes, it's kind of a method of showing that you are interested in other cultures and learning about them and dealing with them and communicating with them. So the program is taught in English, but other languages are valued, and we see that as an important thing. So yes, if you have done a Spanish A2 course in this case, absolutely mention it. I think there's near the end of the application form you'll find space for that, so you don't even have to provide certificates for the language from the languages that you speak that are not English. Only for English do you need to provide a proficiency certificate, but if you want to, you can show and upload certificates. That's always helpful. You don't have to. Okay, so I see here the curriculum of Olomouc University and the topics align perfectly with both my academic and professional experience. Is it mandatory to mention why I chose this university in my motivation letter? It's not mandatory. Nothing really is mandatory in the motivation letter because there is no such thing as a perfect motivation letter. However, if you have a clear focus, a clear academic interest, then it's very much recommended that you add such information to your motivation letter. So that's just something I want to mention here. The motivation letter should be a reflection of why you want to study the program, what you think the program can offer you as a student, and also what you bring to the table based on what you've done in the past. So it's a combination of these three kinds of things. So a reflection of what you've done in the past, a reflection of what you want to do in Euroculture, and also how you want to use Euroculture after you're done with it. So these are, let's say, this is a good general structure for a motivation letter, I would say. There's more to it, of course. There's some things, there's a lot of do's and don'ts. Maybe me and Anfield, we can get into that in a little bit as well. Maybe you can give some insights into how you prepared your application even. But let's go through the other questions first. Okay, so Successful asks, is it true that we need to cover the first months of expenses if we ever get the scholarship, or could we prepare it beforehand while we are in our country? I would say no. So the way it works is, generally speaking, the first payout of the scholarship will take place in August. That's usually before any of the academic years at our university start. So the idea is, roughly speaking, the system is designed for our scholarship students to travel to Europe around mid to late August, at which point they will then receive their scholarship installment just in mid-August. There's some legal issues here to keep in mind. We can travel your first installation for travel. So that can be sent to you before you start your program. However, the monthly installments, so the monthly 1,000 euro payments, can only be paid to you after you've come to Europe and after you've prepared your bank account here. We can only transfer the monthly allowances to a European bank account, and this is legally because we are required to pay out this money for you to study in Europe. If you don't have a European bank account, then you cannot study. Then there's practically speaking, the commission thinks, well, if they don't have a European bank account, they're not in Europe, so something is wrong here. We can't do this. So that's the rule, that's the regulation. So no, you're not expected to front all the costs yourself. Of course, everything is quite expensive at the moment, so it might be that you would have to front a little bit. But from our experience, for the most part, this initial installation costs cover most of the initial costs. And it's also important to mention once the scholarship amount is transferred to you, we don't check what you do with it. It's your money at that point. So it's also up to you to budget responsibly with the money once you get it. You are not expected to pay parts of it back if you don't use it. So it can also be, for example, if you don't spend the whole amount on your flight and your installation, that you can use that to cover some of your initial expenses as well. So we also expect our grad students to budget responsibly in that respect. So that's maybe just a good thing to mention. I hope that answers your question. Successful. Anastasia, my bachelor's GPA is 80%. Am I eligible to apply? I don't know what a GPA of 80% means exactly. Unfortunately, it's not a system I'm super familiar with. But what I can say is we have no GPA minimum. Generally speaking, we do look at grades. So we look at academic performance, we look at your transcript of records, we check more or less within that system how well you've performed throughout your studies. That's something we do take into consideration. However, there's no set GPA requirement, also because you have to deal with cultural differences here. Very interesting cultural differences. Grading across cultures is a fascinating, is in itself a very fascinating academic topic. Why? Because there's different perceptions of what a high grade means in some cultures. So in the Netherlands, for example, it's almost impossible to get the highest grade, whereas in other countries it's almost expected to get the highest grade if you want to be taken seriously. That's not the case in some countries. So what does it mean to get the highest grade? That's a question without a simple answer. Because in some countries that doesn't really mean all that much because, well, okay, if you're even a slightly serious student, you're going to get the highest grade. Whereas in other countries, getting the highest grade means you're exceptional, top of 0.001%. So what I'm trying to say is that the number is important and it's an indication, but it's not an end-all be-all thing. There's no strict requirements here. Generally speaking, we are looking for strong performing students. That's something that we take into consideration. But it's impossible for us to compare all the different systems out there in the world for grading and assessment. So as long as you're a strong performer and you do well in an academic context, that's the thing that we're looking for, let's say. I would like to ask, what specific subject line I think do the professors need to put on the email for the recommendation letters? Okay, so that's a good question. There is no strict requirement, but the easiest way to do it, the most convenient way for us, is make sure that if you already submitted your application, that you submit your application code, and that they include your name and/or your application code in the email. That's very useful for us because then we can very easily find it again. So that's my advice. Make sure that the words Euroculture, your name, and your application number are in there somewhere, and then it's fine. They may address the letters to the admissions board of the Euroculture program. So that's the letter will be sent to the admissions board in general. There's not one specific individual that will look at the letter. We have a system for that, but that's internal secrets. Okay. Generally speaking, and this is also new to our application tool this year, it's also in the tool, so maybe you've already seen it, but if you submit that the letter will be sent by the referee directly in the application tool, we will also automatically send an email to your reference provider, informing them that you have requested that a letter of reference be sent and prepared for Euroculture. We also give them instructions automatically on what they are expected to do as part of the submission process. So you can inform your instructors. It's recommended. You should always consult with your referee before you submit them as a reference, obviously. But that's the thing to keep in mind there. So if they know, then yes, if you have to fill out their email as part of the application. So If you fill out their email, they will get a message. If you submit the letter directly in the tool, they won't get a message. It's only if you submit that the applicant, that the letter will be sent to us by email directly. Okay, Saleh, I want to ask about the motivation letter. What should be the aim for it? Additionally, what is the weightage of application in each category? Okay, your first question, what is a good motivation letter? You know what? Maybe, Anfield, maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you approached your motivation letter and how you thought about it?
Yeah, sure. I actually thought your the three parts that you gave earlier was also really useful. But for me, when I wrote my motivation letters, like for all the studies program that I apply, I usually use this method past, present, and future as a structure to my motivation letter. So yeah, for the past is I mentioned why did I start to become interested in European studies, and then I listed all my previous experience that I expanded my knowledge and interest in that area. So for me, the first two paragraph I more or less mentioned like my high school exchange here in the Netherlands, what I did in my bachelor program, so the courses I studies and how it makes me more interested in European studies, but also all the extra curriculums activities that I did during that time. So I think my past was around two paragraphs, and then I move on to my present. So during the time that I applied for Euroculture, I was already working. So yeah, I put on a paragraph about how I actually use my interest and my knowledge from my bachelor into my current work, and how my current work actually makes me give me more backgrounds on European studies, because I was working with the EU delegation in Thailand back then. So I wrote a bit more on that get me exposed to the practical side of all the things that I've learned during my bachelor years, and that is the reason why I want to explore it more in academic terms with Euroculture. And then next to my future is that I outline what outline why I want to study with Euroculture. And for me, I really study well the website on what there are to offer. And I wrote in my motivation letter that it is aligned with what I want. So because what I want is that I want to delve into more on the academic side of European history, cultures, and values and other topics that are present there. But at the same time, I also want to expand my practical skills, and I want to like really continues in my career, like what I've been doing back in Thailand. And then I wrote that, oh yeah, I saw that you have an internship track, and that's perfect, and I want to do that. And I think I put it down like quite present in the future part. And I also write what me as a person can contribute to the program. So I said I could contribute from my previous experience and my view as an outsider to the EU. It would contribute to this global perspective for your culture program. So I also put it down. And then I end my last paragraph with how I expect to use all my skills and knowledge of your culture to further my career forwards. Yeah, and that's like more or less my structure of my letter. And I really like choose my word with care, because I remember there was a maximum number of words, and like try not to write in the list on what you've done in the CV, but actually pick the one that are most interested for you, and also the one that like really reflect your interest, your skills, and also go a little bit forward on not just describe, okay, I take this course in university, I did this activities during university, or I've worked in this and this is my work, but also to link it to the program and go forward as to how that program would benefits from your past experience, and how your um, and how you can use your past experience and your culture program to forward your career in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing about that I really want to emphasize, because thank you, Anfield. That was, I think, just I think an overall it's a good model, and it's proof that it works. I mean, you're here, so it's proof that it works. But one thing I really want to emphasize there is knowledge of the program. That's something that shouldn't be underestimated. We get fairly regularly, and that's, I think, a bit of a shame, is motivation letters that are not that specific to Euroculture and don't really show understanding of what this program is about or what it does. There's been examples of people, for example, just copying and pasting motivation letters from other applications. That's something that we are quite sensitive to. Generally speaking, it's maybe good to mention, we don't actually disclose the weighing of individual elements of the application. Of course, all the categories that we assess you on are on the website. Those are called the assessment criteria or the admissions criteria. Those can be found under the How to Apply section on the website. So that gives you a list of all the things that we look at. We don't weigh how much we look at individual categories, but what I can say, and what many people don't expect, is we actually value the motivation letter quite highly. So the motivation letter is actually one of the more important categories. So if people don't show that they are interested in the program, if it doesn't come together in the motivation letter, then that can be quite a detriment to your application. So I would definitely say think carefully about what you put in a motivation letter and show that you know what Euroculture is about. Show that you know how the mobility works, what the curriculum is about, maybe how you want to approach it. On the other hand, also, just because you show that you know what the program is, that doesn't mean that you have to know everything already. That's an important step, is you don't have to give us a complete blueprint of the full 2 years and everything that you want to do, and that's not what we're looking for. We want to see a clear link between your previous experiences and how you think those relevant experiences will help you in Euroculture and beyond Euroculture. What can Euroculture do for you? Those links need to be very clear, and I think this sort of past, present, future construction is very, very good way of thinking about it. Yes. So knowledge of the program, recommended. Yes. I would like to ask, we've already had that question. If we were to opt doing the professional track, holding the scholarship, are we allowed to go to other countries beside the 8 unis that were mentioned? Yes, within the EU. So that's an important limitation there. There are limitations on where you are allowed to go for your studies with the scholarship. For example, there's if you cannot spend more than 3 months in a partner country. Maybe let's explain the difference between partner and program country, because this is also something that's sometimes considered confusing. Program countries these are terms defined by the European Commission. So this is Erasmus Mundus jargon, but it's important jargon in this case. Program countries are defined by the Erasmus or by the European Commission as the countries that are paying into the Erasmus Mundus scheme, into Erasmus Plus. So they are, let's say, participating member states and countries involved in the organization of Erasmus Mundus. Those are considered the program countries because they are hosting the program. That's more or less what the definition is for. Partner countries are countries that are partnered with the Erasmus Plus and Erasmus Mundus program. Generally speaking, this is almost every country in the world at this point, so you don't have to worry. Your nationality probably is eligible to participate in that as well. But so partner countries, you might say external partners. So these are non-participating or non-contributing members to Erasmus Mundus, or not in the same way or through different structures, but they are not the partners hosting the program. They are participating in it from an external perspective, let's say. Generally speaking, program roughly means EU plus a few other countries, and partner means not EU plus a few other countries that might be close to the EU or European. Why does this matter? Because you are only allowed to study in program countries with the scholarship. So if you spend a lot of time in partner countries, so external partners of the EU, you cannot receive the scholarship, which is in very rare circumstances. It occasionally happens. It can be a detriment. For example, one of our students from, I think also, Anfield's cohort, is doing an internship in Geneva. Switzerland is a partner country, even though they are sort of in the European continent. As a result, you are not allowed to get more than 3 months of your scholarship when you're there. So that can, and also Switzerland is not known to be cheap. So that's a combination of things that is, there can be some unfortunate combinations. But you don't have to be in a country where Euroculture is offered. So you can go to Slovakia. Let's take Slovakia. Slovakia is a European member state. They are a program country. If you find an internship in Slovakia, you can go there. But Euroculture is not taught there. The closest to Czech Republic. So that's fine. But all these restrictions are also outlined in the contract that you sign if you get the scholarship. So you will be fully informed of all these restrictions and what they might be before you start your program. In fact, you should receive that in March usually already. So that gives you 5 months to think about it as well. But yes, you can still pursue placements outside of the EU. You just can't get your scholarship for it. So that's what this student in particular did. Is they did go to Geneva. They just accepted that they wouldn't get their scholarship for the amount of time that they were there. They were in the fortunate position to be able to do that, but of course not everyone can be expected to do that. But that's a choice, an estimation that you have to make that just changes depending on your own financial situation, what you can do, what you can't do. So yeah. Hi Eunice. You're welcome. That's good. Maheen Zaip asks, hey, I'm an English literature graduate and currently working as a journalist. I want to apply to this program to elevate my journalism career at the international level. Should I apply? Yes, absolutely. We have a lot of students from journalism backgrounds. In fact, I'm also a graduate of the program, and back in my cohort, we had a couple of former or career journalists from China even that came into the program and wanted to get a European approach to this subject. So yes, journalism is an eligible background for the program. You can study it. Yes, so that's something to if you can definitely use Euroculture to boost your career as a journalist. That's one. Many of our graduates do end up in journalism or journalism adjacent fields. So just yes. So Ayub, I am from Pakistan. If I'm submitting English proficiency and another student from Pakistan is submitting an IELTS score, which one will be given priority to, the proficiency or the IELTS one? Okay, so you could think of the language proficiency requirement as a yes-no check. Either it's there or it's not. We don't really assign a direct score to the language test. You need to meet our minimum requirements, but after you've met them, there is no benefit to holding higher scores. So we need to so the language proficiency requirement is there to make sure that you speak the appropriate level of English to participate in an English taught program. If that requirement is met, then that's all we need to know. So there is no difference between someone who was exempt from the language test because they did a full bachelor's in English or someone who submitted a language test result. It's the same result, and no priority is given based on that. I should say, interestingly enough, that most of the time this doesn't really apply or is relevant to you directly, but universities tend to like submitted tests more than they do exemptions, but there's no, from our perspective, from the Euroculture perspective, there's no difference. Oh, Mar, nice to hear from you again. Is it viable to have a part-time job, or the master's requires too much time for that, according to the amount of hours that are recommended to be invested in the master's? Okay, so basically speaking, a part-time job is possible. If you hold the scholarship, we generally say it's not recommended though. I'm not sure if you're familiar with ECTS, but ECTS, the European Credit Transfer System, calculates workload based on a set number of hours per credit. So 30 ECTS basically equates to a full-time job for a semester. That's also the way we theoretically approach it. So you have a full-time job for this semester, that's your studies. Especially if you're a scholarship holder, there's some additional responsibility, or we see some additional responsibility there. Um, because you are, of course, in a privileged position. You've we want you to be able to focus on your studies, and we really don't want to be in a situation where we give someone a lot of money and then they just do other things all the time and they're not focused on their studies. So, in the scholarship agreement, there's also some paragraphs on participation and active participation and requirements to participate. If you want to meet those requirements, you need to make sure that Euroculture is your primary focus for the 2 years, but part-time jobs are possible in our experience. So generally speaking, anything more than 12 hours a week would really be stretching it. But we also understand that life circumstances require people to have extra jobs sometimes. That's just the way it goes. So we won't say no. There's no strict requirements. Although, as a scholarship holder, you cannot have a significant other salaried position at the same time next to your scholarship. So that's something to mention. But a part-time job, let's say you're coming to Olomouc and you want to go work in a bar for a night or two a week, that's fine. Nobody will mind that. So that's fine. Okay, I think we're actually caught up successful. Thank you for the informative answers. You're very welcome. Right then, I think we're all caught up. That's nice. Maybe in that case, what we can do now, Anfield, could you maybe just generally reflect on how did you experience the application process? What are some tips and tricks that you maybe want to share based on your experience? Yeah, maybe something for the people. Yeah.
Yeah. So for I think I started my application process around this time. Is the deadline also still at the end of January for?
It's January 10 this year.
Oh, okay. Uh, was it also with my year? Anyway, I think I started.
15.
I applied to like three other programs, so it was a bit confusing, but it's around this time. I know. I think I start thinking about it way in November, and then I make some notes and mind map on like what I should put on in my motivation letter. And of course, for each program, I really study the program very extensively first to see if it actually match what I want to take. But at the same time, also I want to put that details into my motivation letter to see that, well, I really want to join your program. It's not like I just want to join any European study program or yeah, just any master program in general. I think that's a bit lazy. So yeah, I start early. I do more or less the research, but the actual start of the application process, I think I start around the beginning of December or in mid-December. One thing that I advise to do very early on is to ask for a recommendation letter because I think um, it's a what is it? A good thing is to give your recommendator or your professor like a month in advance to write the letter down because they are usually busy and especially now they were a holiday period. So I think for both of my letters I really asked them like a month in advance for that. uh, yeah, so when I applying for Euroculture I was already working, so I thought it would be nice to have one letters from my professor back in my bachelor years and also one from my boss that who I'm currently working with because for Euroculture it's also yeah with the internship track it's not only focused on the academic side, so I think it would be good to also showcase my practical side or the practical skills that I had while I was working at the EU. Mm, and yeah, my other tips is also to have everything quite organized because you need a few like a lot of documents to submit at once. So I have that already. I number them down on yeah, like on the stage. I'm not sure how the intake platform is difference this year, but I think when I was applying in my year, there is a checklist for you, and I also like just label all my documents according to the checklist, and also to put the number and to make sure that I have like really all my documents in order before I actually submit it. And my other tip is also to submit it like a few days before the actual deadline, which I was busy, or I was something which is a little bit stupid. I apply on the last day, and then I just realized I make a mistake in my applications, and I just realized it like yeah, on the deadline day, and then I have to redo the whole thing. So really don't advise it. It was super stressful. Better be prepared than to be sorry later. So this is, yeah, my tips that I can give you with the application process. And another good thing is also to let your friends like go through the motivation letter again, because once you just keep reading the things you've been writing for 1 month, it just doesn't make sense to you anymore, and you don't really spot the mistake. So it's good to have some feedbacks with your friends. I sent it to a few of my friends, and they were really helpful. So I think it's really good. But in the end, like, it's your application, so take those advice with a grain of salt. And if you feel like, no, I really want to put this sentence on, it's just really me, then go ahead and do it, because it's your applications, it's your master. um yeah, I think that's sort of my tips from me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's a very good, so very useful things to take away from there, especially the good organization. The checklist is still there. It's now not a separate document, but it's on the website. Just you can, if I think it's under the how to apply section. I think at the bottom there's like required documents checklist. You can find it, but it's definitely recommended to make sure that you have all the documents and organize them in time. Yes, the application tool has changed a little bit, but all the documents still need to be submitted in the same way. And hopefully, with this tool, we also don't have to worry about the peak workload at the last day where the system crashes or something. I don't think that's something your cohort hopefully doesn't have to worry about. We don't expect the system can handle more applicants now, and it can handle it better. So we don't have to worry about that. No, but those are some really good tips. Really, almost nothing to add there, actually. So I will just go to our next question here. What about applying to Euroculture to research more about multiculturalism in the European classes as a result of migration? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I would say is what kind of migration would you like to study? Because there are different classes in different universities that focus on different kinds of migration. But generally speaking, migration and multiculturalism are major parts of the program that can be studied from a variety of different perspectives. So, yeah, absolutely, you can study that here. Oh, Anfield, you want to jump in? Sure.
Yeah, I want to add something that in my motivation letter, actually in the future part, I also write my like provisional thesis topic, or like I said, I want to research this further on, yeah, once I'm in the program. And actually, I also, when I was applying, I was quite interested in the multiculturalisms and migration. So I actually put that down as like, yeah, this is like the topic that I want to pursue later on, which is doesn't turn out to be the actual thesis that I'm currently writing. But I think it's good to show that you are actually passionate about one certain topic, and especially if that topic is part of the main focus of the university that you pick as like your top three. I think that's probably added to the strength of your application in general.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. It's very. It goes back to being It's tied into being knowledgeable about the program. It's also knowing what you want from it. So having an idea of what you want to research and how particular Euroculture universities can help you do that is very good. That also goes back to the question from Anastasia earlier about I'm interested in Olomouc. Should I mention that? Yes, absolutely. Do note that there's the right way and the wrong way of talking about a country that you want to go to. The wrong way is saying, I love traveling and I just love the country so much and I just want to go there and I'm going to be so happy. That's not the right way to talk about the country. Why? Because it doesn't show that you know about the program. It doesn't give a good academic reason for wanting to go there. So you can mention countries, but be specific about what you want from them. For example, mention specific institutions or people that you want to work with when you're there. That's a good strategy as well. So we always really like research and showing that you're interested in particular kinds of research, or even, yeah, I really like the suggestion of a thesis topic. You can add that. It doesn't you. It's rather, it's the principle behind it, which is showing I know that Euroculture can help me do this research, and this is how I want to do it. That's very good. That's a good way to approach it. Absolutely. So Eunice asks, can you talk about the writing sample? So yes, I can. What is the main point of the writing sample? The main point of the writing sample is to prove that you can write academically, and to show that you know the formal elements of how this works. The writing sample is preferably, wherever it's available, a thesis. Why? Because it's the most substantial piece of writing you've probably produced up until that point, and it's going to show what you are capable of doing in an academic context. As is clear hopefully from the documents, guidelines, is that you don't need to submit a writing sample in English. Why? Because the format of the paper and showing that you know how to write academically is more important, because we're not there to assess your language skills, we're there to assess your ability to write academically, because there's the language test for that already. Do note though, we do want an English summary of the paper, and that's more so to do with the relevance, because we are more interested in papers that are already relevant to Euroculture, but that's not the main goal. So even if it's, let's say, your thesis doesn't really relate to Euroculture that well, which is, I would say that most papers that you've written, if your background is relevant, then it's likely that your paper is also relevant in some way or another. And it's more about finding the relevance and explaining the relevance. And that can also be something that you do in the summary as well, as explaining why this text is relevant. So I would say it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where your background is relevant but your paper isn't. It can, I guess it's possible, but in most cases you wouldn't expect that. So you probably have written something relevant during your studies. Some people haven't written as much. You can submit an application without a writing sample, but basically the better or the longer the writing sample, the better it is for your application. It's really something that we do value, because if you don't know the basics of academic writing by the time you come in, you're going to have a very difficult time in the program, because we spend some time getting people up to a certain level, but if you need to learn too much, we can't force an entire BA's worth of academic writing practice into one semester. So you need to have a basis in this, and that's what the academic writing sample is there to show, is that you are capable of producing the level of work that is necessary to then develop in Euroculture. So that's the idea. Well, of course, the perfect writing sample is in English and is completely relevant to Euroculture and is like a bachelor's thesis. That's like the perfect writing sample, basically, but that is not a strict requirement. It's not really the goal, but yeah. Okay. Hi. Anna asks, hi, I have the French diploma Delft 2 and an Italian certificate. Should I mention those two languages? Yes. So it comes back to a question we had earlier. All language experience is relevant. We think that's relevant in European studies in general. To be able to speak, to communicate in different cultures, in different contexts. All languages are relevant. You can add them in a particular section in the application tool where we ask you to submit your language tests. You can even submit the certificates. There's an upload button for that now that didn't used to be there, but we now also allow you to upload certificates from other languages. Those are not required, right? These are optional. These are just something you can do if you have them, because people in the last few years regularly asked us, well, I have all these certificates, but I can't upload them anywhere. Could you maybe I want to prove that I know this language. And it's like, sure, okay, now you can do that. But it's not mandatory as part of the application process. But again, if it ties into your motivation, it sort of shows that you have a character that wants to learn languages. So yes, if you have the experiences, do mention them. Anna, once I start the application, do I have to finish it right away? I'm missing one document. Can I start it and then finish it once I have everything? Yes. So the application tool has now changed a bit since it did last year's. You can just submit and start. You can save the progress on your application at any time. You don't have to do what you might have to do last year's, which was once you close your session, you have to re-upload all the documents. That's not required anymore. You can just upload documents and then they stay in there. And you can come back to your application whenever you want. And even after you've applied, after your application has been submitted, you can still log in and see your application and what it looks like once submitted. So you can even check, okay, did I really submit the right documents? Did this go in properly? You don't have to email us about that anymore. You can just see what you submitted, basically for the entire year. So you don't have to you don't have to submit everything in one go. In fact, I heartily recommend to open the application tool already and just go through it and see, okay, can I upload this? Can I upload this? Because it gives you a better understanding of how the process works. And the application tool also the application tool just grants you, also asks you some questions now about what kinds of application you might be most suitable to use. So for example, we ask you, when are you going to be graduated? We're going to ask you, did you write a thesis? And then optional questions might appear. So the application tool was updated a bit to help you also a bit more in the application process. So I would definitely recommend going through it before you submit everything. I don't have a passport yet. Can I submit my scenic identity card as proof of identity? Yes, you can upload an identity card for the purposes of your application, but we do ask that you send us a scan of your passport as soon as you have it. And you should also mention that you are going to apply for a passport, maybe in like a separate file somewhere. Why? Because you need a passport to travel internationally. So you need to have that if you're going to be coming to the EU or traveling internationally. So that's important to keep in mind. Okay. Eunice asks, I had to write a research term paper. My topic had to do with gender inequality, but in Ghanaian politics. Is that okay? Yes, 100%. The topics of gender inequality are quite common. I think even one of the thesis examples I gave earlier was about gender inequality in European institutional politics. Gender inequality is a topic that generally comes back, and I think if you submit a paper about the Ghanaian context, that's only going to be quite interesting and relevant to the admissions committee. So in a more general sense, the topics are more important than the context of where the paper was written in. So of course, if you're from that region, then we don't expect you to have written all your papers on the EU. But it's rather, is the academic content relevant? Are there skills that are also transferable to the European context? And I would expect that if you have, let's say, developed a certain approach to gender inequality, that you might also be able to expand and apply that approach in the European context. So yes, absolutely, a paper in that field is relevant. Victoria, I couldn't see my application after I submitted. How can I do that? You just log in as if you still wanted to change something about your application, and then it should anyway just show you the application, but you can't submit it anymore because it's already been submitted. So you can still just see all the documents, and I think that should, from my understanding, from what I've seen and tried, that's how it works. Otherwise, I think we've already had that discussion. At any time before the deadline, if you failed to upload a document, if you forget something, you can write to me and I can reopen your application. So you don't have to even restart it anymore. I could just reopen your current application. And you just need to change the documents and press the submit button again. And then you don't have to worry about deleting applications or anything like that. So you don't need to start a new one. Okay, well, you're very welcome. Oh my goodness, we're running out of time. That's crazy. Okay, let's see. So we have a few more minutes. Girma asks, is the program open for African students? I asked this question because I did 2 scholarship applications, but have not won the scholarship. So yes, it is open to African nationals, and in fact, we do have scholarships also targeted at that region. So yes, why you haven't won the scholarship, I can't say. I will say that there's many applicants from Africa, so it is going to be difficult to compete with all of them. It's a big region, and it's also a competitive region. There's many people that want to apply for that particular region. So it just might be the case that other applicants had a profile that was more suitable that year. It's difficult. I can't say why you did or did not get the scholarship, but African students are absolutely welcome to apply, both the self-financing and scholarship students. And we usually have a few as well. Yeah. Okay. These hours go by very quickly. I thought we'd have a bit more. Mahin Zaib, I wrote a thesis during the bachelor's, but it was... Okay, it seems Anfield has just left us. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope she comes back. Yes, okay, perfect. Okay, you're back. Okay, good. Can you hear me? All good?
Yeah. It just accidentally closed the window.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's okay. No, I was just saying, I was just answering the question here, but it was a pair work. Can I submit that and highlight my part? Yes. Yes, you can do that. Although we recommend individual work to be submitted if you have that instead, because it's clearer for everyone involved if you submitted individual work. I must admit, it's also stronger for your application to submit individual work. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, maybe Anfield. Are there any final tips, tricks, or things that you want to share with the people here?
I feel like I already said most of the tips that I wish I had known when I was applying for Euroculture. But yeah, I would say it again that please start your application on time. It's a lot better for your mental health to not be stressed about it, especially like near the deadline. And it's also, yeah, holidays coming soon, and I'm sure you don't really want to work or stress through the holiday period. So it's already good to have some groundwork in to write some mind maps, or what are you going to write in your actual motivation letter, to have that email sent to your professor, to your boss, to ask for the recommendation letter, to like compile all your necessary documents. And yeah, I another thing is like, if you doubt whether you should apply or not, or you just doubt whether you would just actually get their scholarship, my advice is to submit it anyway. Like, it's maybe what you thought and what yeah, the program thought would be different from you, and just my advice just to go ahead, just write it out and then submit it. And yeah, good luck.
Thanks, Anfield. I think that's good advice. Yes, please do try. Yes, you will not be the only one applying for the scholarship. There are many people that are interested in it, but you would be surprised at how good your odds can be in certain circumstances as well. So definitely don't be afraid to try. And often case also, this is something that I also want to stress. If you don't get the scholarship, that really doesn't say anything about you as a person or you as an academic. We just have to deal with a large number of applicants a lot of the time. And there are truly excellent students that we sometimes have to turn down just because we have no more scholarships available. In many cases, we wish we could give you all a scholarship, but that's just not that's just not what we can do. Yes, do apply. Don't be intimidated by the process. It's actually we are also here to help you support that through that whole process. So just write us an email, ask us questions, and we are just happy to help and engage with your questions. So we want to make sure that it's clear what you have to do. I think we are out of time officially. If you have any further questions, what I will do once again, I think most of you will already know this, Euroculture@rug.nl. Our website, of course, is euroculturemaster.eu. Also, always good to keep in mind is the Euroculture.eu, which is our students' magazine. They produce a lot of interesting content from the students' perspective. Definitely want to recommend that you take a look at that, because it's a much better way of getting past what you might call the marketing or PR team and actually seeing what students are experiencing and what they're actually doing, and how they experience particular cities, for example, and also what they are thinking about academically, professionally. So that's something to keep in mind. Follow us on social media if you're interested in that. We do try to post regular updates. So, for example, from our recent graduation, we had a very fun, a fun one in Groningen. One of our students prepared a Lego model of the academy building that was actually picked up by local news because it was very detailed, over 70,000 pieces. So that was was quite an additional value to the event. And of course, if you're ever in the region of Groningen, feel free to drop by my office. I will actually just leave the number here. So that's my office number in the Harmony building of the Faculty of Arts in Groningen. I know most of you probably won't be in the area pretty soon, but you know, who knows? Who knows? With that, I think I want to say goodbye to all of you. Thank you for your time and your attention. I hope this was a useful session to you. A big special thanks also, of course, to Anfield for her time out of her busy internship schedule to come and talk to you. So that's very much appreciated. So thank you, Anfield. Thank you so much. And with that, I want to say have a good rest of your day, everyone. And good luck with your applications if you're in the middle of preparing one right now. And if you need anything from us, you know where to find us. Good luck, goodbye, and hopefully see you very soon.